My name is Priscilla Page. I teach at the University of Massachusetts Amherst in the theater department, and I'm the coordinator for the Multicultural Theater Certificate. I'm currently working on bringing a component of oral history into one of my upper division courses called Multicultural Theater Practice. Really, interviews are different than oral histories, and I want the students to have a real understanding of that. So they'll actually get research and interview techniques, and then they'll get oral history research and interview techniques. And so there'll be a 4-part podcast series, and the students will interact with those podcasts. We'll break those down into bite-sized pieces. I'll have different assignments based on that. I'm also going to be asking the students to identify local artists of color who we can then interact with and create oral histories with a culminating project of the students creating their own oral histories that they will then circulate, hopefully in a digital archive. I am excited about this blended learning grant opportunity. I do also feel like there's a lot of support for the tools that I do select and how I do sort of create this online or blended content for my course. I think I'm done.
Thank you.
So I actually created, we call it like our blended learning days, and I created a separate assignment sheet. So I have both the artist interview description and goals sheet, and then I have the artist interview weekly assignment. So I think I had a larger sort of scale of the idea of the projects that they were going to be doing. An oral history project, for example, you know, there are people who spend 30 hours with one narrator. So I'm not doing oral histories, which was the original idea, but what I've called these are artist interviews. And so I've asked that the students schedule at a minimum of 1 hour, hopefully 1 to 2 hours of time with each artist. It was a very grand idea, and what I think I have now is manageable, and I think it will set the students up to be successful in these projects. This is that sort of descriptive language of what my expectation with the project is. So they've got to create one full-length interview with an artist of color. They're going to work as a group to come up with their interview questions, but they're also going to have to tailor those to each artist, conduct independent research, transcribe their interview, and then to think about a professional, piece that they're going to share. I have a blog set up through UMass, and so I have told them that one thing we might think about is, as a class, everybody sharing things on the blog. But I've also left it open-ended so that if they have their own social media where they want to maybe excerpt the interviews and circulate it, through Facebook or other forms. And then some of them are actually very good writers, so I've also suggested that they may think about, editing these interviews and turning them into a publishable piece for something like HowlRound. So there's this great source called HowlRound, which is a knowledge commons by and for the theater community. It's really for practitioners to write about the field. I actually shared with them from the summer an audio interview that I did that I actually then edited and published on HowlRound. This is the first one that they had to listen to. It was the sort of source material for a piece that I published on HowlRound. This is Priscilla Page. I'm sitting with Lisa Ann Acosta, and we are going to be talking today about Latino theater. And what I wanted them to do was compare what they listened to the published piece and pay attention to any differences. How did I edit the 30 plus minutes to get down to a 2,000 word journal article? And so I share this to tell the students that this is one possibility. Could you create, an essay on a particular theme or topic? Again, that is publishable quality. For the blended content, I have 3 guests. I've been interviewing them about their research and then also asking them questions about how they go about their research. I captured 2 interviews just as audio podcasts. One of my artists moved to Minnesota. I had to use video conferencing services so that I could record our telephone conversation. Chris Golas at the video conferencing services, he was the most helpful. He coordinated actually over the weekend because the only time I could meet with my artist to do the video conference was on a Sunday afternoon, and so Chris was available to do that, to set us. He needed to be online so that we could both sort of call in at the same time, so he went sort of above and beyond. What I didn't sort of think about was the size of the files. I didn't know that Moodle was not going to be able to support sharing those, so but very easily I ended up just popping over to Google Drive, and so I've shared that content with the students via Google Drive. So what was nice about this, I got to, I sent the interview questions to Talvin ahead of time. Again, Chris in the video conferences set everything up. So I was in my office and Talvin was in his office, and
Hi, I am Priscilla Page. I'm virtually sitting with Talvin Wilkes, who is in Minneapolis, in his office at the University of Minnesota, Minneapolis.
That's just one sample. So they watch that and then they answer 3 or 4 questions and they post those responses on Moodle. And that's a place where then I'm checking in to see what are they getting, what do they still have questions about, just sort of helping me track how they're doing with that. And so I'm asking them to sort of think across all of us as, you know, we each have different strategies for research. We're using the interview materials differently. And again, just as, you know, to help them generate their ideas for what they want to do. The other thing that I did this semester is on a day when they have the assignment of listen to this podcast and write your responses, I actually reserve a half an hour of class time. I bring in snacks and I say, you know, you can do this homework assignment outside of class, or you can listen, and then if you have more questions that I'm available. It's this sort of open classroom, or I think we call it a flipped classroom now, so that it's not that they're doing their homework outside of class and then submit the assignment and then they get the grade and then that's the end of it. I feel like I'm trying to make it more about a dialogue and more about emphasizing the process. It seems like it has a nice byproduct of it. They have more ownership in the classroom. Everybody feels more like a community, and they're all really invested and participating in dialogue. In previous semesters, you get, you know, the handful of students who do all of the reading all of the time, and you get some folks who sometimes participate, and then you get some folks who don't really participate. I've seen kind of an equalizing, that everybody is really participating at a much higher level, and that's exciting. I will do this again. I think it's on schedule for next year in the spring. I think I've struck a good balance, so I may not change the assignment or how we work in the future. I may think about how to make more content, if possible, more of the content blended, and give up even more time for the students to sort of, you know, to have even more of an open concept in the classroom. My advice is, you know, not to feel overwhelmed and to make sure to think about things in the most manageable ways. It doesn't have to be some, you know, big, complicated overhaul of a class. My way through it was to pick one component of the class and decide that that would become the blended content. And then I actually relied on technology I was already somewhat familiar with, so I didn't put myself into totally uncharted territory. I thought that I was going to rely on a student assistant for this content and for helping with the technology piece, but I was actually able to do that piece alone. It was great to know that I had that option, but then at the end of the day, I really did tailor the whole component to the things I knew how to do. I wouldn't want to do something so completely new that I felt uncertain, because then I think the students would feel uncertain. So you want to make sure the students, you know, feel like the professor knows what they're doing to a certain, even when we had a couple glitches with, you know, file sharing, it was sort of like, okay, we're all going to solve this problem and we're all talking to each other. So, so don't get overwhelmed, know that there's support, call on the support, and make sure things feel manageable and doable.